Good morning, all. Welcome to the class of EE 306 Process Analysis under KTU. In today's session, we'll be continuing the topic of economic law dispatch, that is of module 5. In last classes, we have seen that economic law dispatch, if the transmission line losses are not being taken into account, how the solution is obtained. So in that case, we consider the cost function as Fi is equal to Ai plus Bi into Pi plus Ci into Pi square rupees per hour, where Pi is the power generated or active power generation of the ith station. A, B and C are constants and Fi relates to the cost function. And the incremental cost function ICI, it is being denoted, IC stands for incremental cost function, and it is given by dFi by dPi. So that is equal to Bi plus 2 into Ci into Pi. So thus we can equate to lambda. Incremental cost function is equal to lambda rupees per megawatt hour, which is given by Bi plus 2 Ci into Pi. So from this equation, we can rearrange it to Pi. Pi is equal to lambda minus Bi divided by 2Ci, such that sigma Pi is equal to Pd, where Pd is the total demand. So Pi, if it is this, sigma Pi, we can write it as sigma Pi, which is equal to sigma I equal to 1 to n lambda minus Bi divided by 2Ci, which is equal to Pd. Thus we can expand it as lambda by 2 sigma lambda by 2Ci minus sigma Bi by 2Ci is equal to Pd. From that we can obtain an equation for lambda as Pd plus sigma Bi by 2Ci all divided by sigma 1 by 2Ci. So that is known as the system lambda. So system lambda is given by Pd plus sigma Bi by 2Ci divided by sigma 1 by 2Ci. This equation we use when if there are many number of stations are there, generating number of units are more than 2, we can simply, it's easy to do with system lambda. And earlier we have done, in the last session, we have done a problem where only 2 stations were there. So P1 plus P2 will be equal to PD, and lambda will get an equation for that. ICI, so the equation was IC1 is equal to IC2. We put that. So 2 equations you got, and we can solve that for 2 unknowns, P1 and P2. Suppose there are many number of stations are there. So we can use this equation. It will be much easier to do. System lambda equation, lambda, in terms of this B and C values of each station. Okay, we'll try to work out one problem with this. Let us consider a problem. The statement of problem is the fuel cost in rupees per hour for a plant of 3 units are given by C1 is equal to 0.1 P1 square plus 40 P1 plus 100. C2 is equal to 0.125 P2 square plus 30 P2 plus 80. C3 is equal to 0.15 P3 square plus 20 P3 plus 150. Find the incremental cost and distribution of loads between the 3 units for optimal operation of a total load of 400 megawatt, given that the maximum and minimum capacity limits for each of the units are 150 megawatt and 120 megawatt respectively. So consider the incremental cost curves given by IC1, IC2, IC3, etc. IC1 is dC1 by dP1, that you can find from the given C1, C2, C3 equations. You can find dC1 by dP1 and dC2 by dP2 and dC3 by dP3. So it will, first one will be 2 into 0.1 P1 plus 40. That is this 0.2 P1 plus 40. Second one will be IC2 will be 2 into 0.125 P2 plus 30. Similarly, you'll get IC3 like this. Okay. Now, for the total load values of P total is given as 400 megawatt. That is a P demand. For optimal operation, we have to apply the EIC criterion. That means ICs are to be equal. That is IC1 equal to IC2 equal to IC3. And P total is 400. P1 plus P2 plus P3, 400. So this is the two equation. Okay. So we can find the system lambda given by lambda is equal to PD plus sigma Bi by 2Ci whole divided by sigma 1 by 2Ci for all values of I. I is equal to 1, 2 and 3. So substituting the values for all values of I in this equation, you can find lambda, and lambda will get it as 63.78 rupees per megawatt hour. Using this value of the common system lambda, the megawatt output values of all the three units are obtained from their IC curves as P1 is equal to, lambda. If you know the lambda is nothing but IC, no. So this 0.2 P1 plus 40 is equal to lambda. Similarly, 0.25 P2 plus 30 is lambda, like that. So solving that, from that equation, you can find what is P1 and P2 and P3. You'll get P1 and P2 and P3 like this. So, and now we got the first values of P1, P2, P3. Now what we have to do? We have to check for the min-max condition. We should check for the minimum and maximum values. Minimum and maximum values of all the units were given as 150 and 20, means a minimum 20 and maximum 150. You have to check for that, whether all the values are between that. You can see that all those values are within the minimum and maximum limits. So we can say that lambda system is this 63.78, which is same as lambda 1, lambda 2 and lambda 3. And the total load is optimally shared between the three units like this. And in that condition, the operating cost would be its minimum. Okay. Now we'll do another problem. Statement is given that IC1 is this, IC2 30 plus 0.25 P2. Calculate and tabulate the load shared by each unit for optimal operation if the total load varies from 50 to 250 megawatt in steps of 50 megawatt, given that maximum megawatt is 125 and the minimum megawatt is 20 for both the units. So this is a problem in which the total load or total demand actually varies from 50 to 250. So we have to find the cases of total load which occurs between 50 and 250. So the equation for IC1 is 40 plus 0.2 P1. So consider the ICs at P minimum. So minimum was 20. If P1 is 20, what will be IC1? That's what it is being found out. So IC1 corresponding to P1 is equal to P1 minimum, that is 20 megawatt, will be 40 plus 0.2 into P1. P1 is 20. So you'll get it as 44 rupees per megawatt hour. Similarly, IC2 for a minimum input, for a minimum generation, that is 20 megawatt, will be equal to 30 plus 0.25 P2. So you'll get it as 35 rupees per megawatt hour. So you observe these two values. So you can see that IC2, which is lower than IC1, means EIC holds good only from the stage where the system lambda is equal to 44 rupees per megawatt hour. So corresponding to this, P1 is 20. What will be P2 corresponding to this IC system lambda equal to 44? So you find P2 corresponding to 44, lambda 44. So you'll get it as 30 plus 0.25 P2 is equal to 44. So from that we can find P2 corresponding to a lambda of 44 as 44 minus 30 divided by 0.25. You'll get it as 56 megawatt. So what is the conclusion? So when P total is 20 plus 56, here IC2 will be same as IC1. At that time, P2 will be 56, whereas P1 will be 20. So total load is 20 plus 56, which is equal to 76 megawatt. Clear? So until 76 megawatt total load or a system lambda of 44, EIC will not be feasible. That means unit 1 will work at its minimum load of 20 megawatt, and all the additional load is shared by the second generator, means unit 2 alone, till this system lambda equal to 44. Clear? Because below that it is very much economical to operate below system lambda 44. It's very economical to operate the maximum under the maximum operating condition, that generating station P2, because it is having a IC2 lower than the minimum value of IC1. Okay, so that is the first step or first stage. Now consider the IC values corresponding to P max. Since unit 2 is expected to reach its maximum limit earlier, we can find what is IC2 corresponding to a P2, which is P2 max. P2 max was given as 125. So it will be 30 plus 0.25 into 125 will be given as 61.25 rupees per megawatt hour. So corresponding to this lambda of P2 as 125 megawatt, what is the corresponding P1? That is the next step. So P1 corresponding to a lambda 1 of 61.25 will be 61.25 minus 40 divided by 0.2. Okay, from the cost function you can get this relation, IC function, you can get this equation. So lambda minus 40 divided by 0.2 will give you P1. So you'll get it as 106.25 megawatt. So that then the total will be, what will be the total? 125 plus 106.25. So it will be 231.25. So after this, what is the conclusion? This is the maximum possible value for the second generation. It already reached the 125 megawatt criterion, which is the maximum value. So after a total load of 231.25 megawatt, EIC ceases to hold good. Unit 2 will work at its maximum load of 125 megawatt, and only additional load can be bared by unit 1 alone until P1 also reaches 125 megawatt. Now here P1 is only 106. It can go up to 125. So that is the stage 2. We have considered the minimum condition. We have now considered the maximum condition. So in between that minimum and maximum values means in between the P total of 76 to 231.25, we can have the EIC criteria, or else lambda system if it is in between 44 and 61.25. Okay, EIC holds good. So at any point in between, so P total if it is say between 76, 100, 150, 200, etc., we can have the optimum operation. We can find out it. So for the total load values of PT is equal to 100, 150, 200, the equations to be solved for the output power values as IC1 is equal to IC2 and PT is equal to P1 plus P2. The lambda system can be calculated using any one of the IC equations. So it is, what our thing being obtained is tabulated here. This is the P total. This is P1 and P2. Suppose P total is 50, because in the problem you are asked to find it from 50 to 250 megawatt. So if it is a 50 megawatt, P1 will be 20, it will be fixed, P2 will be 30, and unit 2 only shares the additional load. Okay, because lambda system was fixed as 44. And the condition of minimum was 20 plus 56 equal to 76 at a lambda system of 44. And increasing that 100, 150, 200, etc. What is P1 and P2 being found here? And the corresponding system lambda, it increases from 44 to 46, 52, 57, etc. So unit 1 and unit 2 share a total load as per the EIC criterion, means IC1 is equal to IC2. That's a EIC criterion. The system works with a common system lambda. Means lambda 1 and lambda 2 will be same as the lambda, system lambda. And it goes up to P2 max of 125, where P1 was 106. So total 231.25, system lambda 61.25. And for 250, this was already fixed 125. Now this will also take 125. System lambda will be 61.25, because after that EIC does not hold good. Unit 1 only shares the additional load. Okay. Now we will move on to the discussions with the transmission line losses also being taken into. So far we have done it with the optimization problem was minimize f of t subjected to a constraint of PD is equal to sigma pi or sigma pn. Now the transmission losses, if it is being denoted as a PL, problem can be stated as minimize optimization. It's an optimization problem. Minimize f of t, minimize ft, which is equal to sigma n equal to 1 to n or I equal to 1 to n f of I or fn. Okay, minimize ft sigma fn subjected to PD plus PL minus sigma Pn is equal to 0. Here one additional term is there, that is the losses. Means the total power generated has to meet the total demand plus losses. And this losses is assumed to be a function of generation. So this, how will you solve this? We can solve this with the help of Lagrange function using Lagrangian multiplier lambda. So the auxiliary function or Lagrangian function f can be written as equal to ft plus lambda into the constraint equation, that is PD plus PL minus sigma PL. Taking the partial derivative of this expression when equated to 0 gives the condition for optimal load dispatch, that is dou f by dou Pn is equal to dou ft by dou Pn plus lambda into dou PL by dou Pn minus 1 equal to 0. Because PD is a constant term, PL is assumed to be a function of PIs, generation, function of generation, no, PL. So that is dou PL by dou Pn minus sigma Pn. If it is being differentiated with respect to Pn, it will be 1, no, because sigma Pn is P1 plus P2 plus etc. Of that, if we are differentiating it with respect to 1 means P1 by P1, it will be 1. All other P2, P3 has nothing to do with P1. So this equation will be dou f plus dou f by dou Pn is equal to dou ft by dou Pn plus lambda into dou PL by dou Pn minus 1 equal to 0. And this can be again written as dou f by dou Pn can be written as dfn by dPn plus dfn by dPn plus lambda into dou PL by dou Pn, which is equal to lambda. Okay. dfn by dPn plus, rearranging this equation, we can write plus dou PL by dou Pn is equal to lambda. As this is equated to 0, we can write it as this lambda dou PL by dou PN, this is lambda. So this lambda taking into the right side, you can write it as dou FT by dou PN, we can write it as df, you can take it as a full derivative. So dFn by dPn plus lambda into dou PL by dou PN is equal to lambda. Okay. So this, in this, there is a term dou PL by dou PN. This is known as the incremental transmission loss at plant N. And lambda is known as the incremental cost of received power in rupees per megawatt hour. And the equation dFn by dPn plus lambda into dou PL by dou PN is equal to lambda. This equation is known as the coordination equation. Coordination equation. So what about this coordination equation? It's a set of n equations with n plus 1 unknowns. Here n generations are unknown and lambda is also an unknown. So that's why it is n plus 1 unknown. So known as, this equation is known as coordination equation because they coordinate the incremental transmission losses with the incremental cost of production. What is incremental transmission loss? Dou PL by dou PN is known as the incremental transmission loss. And what is incremental cost? Lambda is known as the incremental cost of received power expressed in rupees per megawatt hour. So to solve these equations, the loss formula equation is expressed in terms of the generation and is approximately expressed as PL is equal to sigma M, sigma N, PM, BM, and PN, which is known as the loss formula equation, where PM and PN are the real power generated at the mth and nth plants, and BMN the transmission loss coefficient. The formula is actually derived under the assumptions that the equivalent load current at any bus remains a constant complex fraction of total equivalent load current. And the generator bus voltage magnitudes and the angles are constant. And it is also assumed that the power factor of each source is constant. So if PGS are in megawatts and BMN are in reciprocal megawatts, computations, of course, may be carried out in per unit. So BMN is equal to BNM. So the transmission loss formula can be written in matrix form as PL is equal to PG transpose into B into PG, where PG is PG1, PG2, etc., PGN, and B is B11, B12, etc., B1K, B21, 22, B2, etc., B2K, etc., up to BK, BK, BK1, BK2, etc., BKK. So this is a symmetric matrix. So we'll take a particular case of 3-plant system. So will you write the loss equation? Loss expression can be written as PL is equal to B11 into PG1 square plus B22 into PG2 square plus B33 into PG3 square plus 2 into B12 into PG1 into PG2 plus 2 into B23 into PG2 into PG3 plus 2 into B31 into PG3 into PG1. Here the term 2 comes because B12 and B21 are the same. So 2 terms will be there, no? B12 from 1 to 2. Similarly, B21 from 2 to 1. So that terms will be added up. That's why the 2 comes here. So the incremental transmission losses, it can be written as dou PL by dou PGI in general as dou by dou PGI of sigma M, sigma K, PGM, BMN, PGN, which is equal to dou by dou PGI of sigma N equal to 1 to K, N not equal to I, PGI, BIN, PGN, plus sigma M equal to 1 to K, M not equal to I, PGM, BMI, PGI, plus PGI into BII into PGI. So on simplification, this we can write it as dou PL by dou PGI is equal to J equal to 1 to K, 2 into Bij into PGJ. So to arrive on optimal load dispatching, the simultaneous solution of the coordination equation along with the equality constraint should suffice and enough to do that. And any standard matrix inversion subroutine can be used to solve that. But the plants might go beyond their loading condition that we have seen in the earlier problems. And it becomes necessary to solve a new set of equations, and thus by the process of elimination, this could be done. So first set of plan values P1, P2, etc. we have to find first. Then we have to check for the min-max conditions. If it exceeds, we have to fix that. If it is exceeding the minimum value, we have to fix it at P minimum. And if it is exceeding the maximum value, we have to fix it at P max. So that will be a very time consuming in a practical large interconnected system. So there we may not be solving the coordination equation as such by calculation and all. We'll be using iterative procedure. We can assume that say lambda system is equal to say some value. Find corresponding values of each P1, P2, P3, etc. Similarly, then iterative procedure, you can apply that for each increment in lambda. How does it change? We can have a pattern. Okay. So far we discussed here in this today's session, we discussed about the economic load dispatching, where we include the transmission losses also. The same thing can be done in many ways. Another method is called the penalty factor method. Penalty factor method means problem is the same, minimize C of the CT or FT, which is sigma CI, where CI is a function of PI, and such that sigma PI is equal to PD plus PL, or PD plus PL minus sigma PI is equal to 0. That's a constraint equation. Okay. And the Lagrange function, the same we have written. L is equal to, or F is equal to CT minus lambda into sigma PI minus PD minus PL. The minimum cost value is obtained when dou PL by dou PI is equal to 0 and dou L by dou lambda equal to 0. This we found that in earlier case it has a constraint given again itself. So dou CT by dou PI minus lambda into 1 minus dou PL by dou PI is equal to 0, and this sigma PI minus PD minus PL equal to 0. So further, since the cost of a given unit depends only on its on our power output, we can say dou CT is equal to dCi by dPi for every I. So the equation will become dCi by dPi minus lambda into 1 minus dou PL by dou PI equal to 0. And dCi by dPi will be called the, in earlier case, we call it as the incremental cost. No. So that is equal to lambda into 1 minus dPL by dPi. Okay. So for optimal operation, lambda, which is equal to, what will it become? From this equation, lambda is equal to ICI divided by 1 minus dPL by dPi. So that is equal to ICI into 1 minus dPL by dPi raised to minus 1. This term we can call it as the penalty factor. What is penalty factor? This term 1 minus dou PL by dou PI inverse, 1 minus dPL by dPi inverse. This we can call it as the penalty factor. So lambda, which is equal to penalty factor multiplied by ICI. PNI is the penalty factor of unit I, which is equal to 1 minus dPL by dPi inverse, which is equal to 1 minus ITL. ITL is incremental transmission loss. dPL by dPi, which we call it as an incremental transmission loss. So 1 minus ITL raised to minus 1. Okay. So ITL I, which is equal to dPL by dPi, is the incremental transmission loss of unit I, and lambda is in rupees per megawatt hour. So what is the conclusion? The solution to ELD, we can say that for optimum generation, when the transmission losses are being considered, all the units must operate such that the product of incremental fuel cost, ICI, and their penalty factor must be the same for all units. That is a difference. Earlier, if we haven't, when we haven't considered the losses, equation was incremental cost should be same for all the units for economic operation. Here the conclusion is incremental fuel cost multiplied by their penalty factor should be same for all the units. Okay. We'll do some problems related with this. We'll discuss. First question. Determine the incremental cost of received power and the penalty factor of the plant shown in figure. If the incremental cost of production is dF1 by dP1 is 0.1 P1 plus 3 rupees per megawatt hour. This is the system. What is the penalty factor and what is the cost of received power? That's the question. So what is penalty factor? Penalty factor is given by 1 minus dou PL by dou PN. Here, what is dou PL by dou PN? Losses is given as 2 megawatt and the generation is given as 10 megawatt. That means out of the 10 megawatt generated, 2 megawatt is lost. Only demand, only load is 8 megawatt. So you'll get dou PL by dou PN as 2 by 10, no? So 1 minus 2 by 10. So it will be 0.8, no? 1 by 0.8 or it will be 10 by 8. That is the penalty factor. Okay. And what is the cost of received power? It will be dF1 by dP1 into L1. L1 is the penalty factor. So 0.1 into P1 is 10. 0.1 into 10 plus 3. That is dF1 by dP1 multiplied by 10 by 8. You'll get it as rupees 5 per megawatt hour. Okay. Second problem. This is a 2-bus system. It is shown in figure. If a load of 125 megawatt is transmitted from plant 1 to load, a loss of 15.625 megawatt is incurred. Determine the generation schedule and the load demand if the cost of received power is rupees 24 per megawatt hour. Solve the problem using coordination equation and penalty factor method approach. Incremental production cost of the plant are dF1 by dP1 is 0.025 P1 plus 15, dF2 by dP2 0.05 P2 plus 20. That's the problem. How will you solve this? And in the problem statement, it is given that load is 125 megawatt, which is transmitted, and the load is at, it is in the diagram, it is seen that load is at bus 2 alone. There is no load connected to bus 1. So therefore, the losses in the line will not be affected by the generation of P2. Or else you can say PL can be expressed as P1, B11 into P1 square. Because B12, B21 and B22, the loss coefficients corresponding to the station 2 are all 0. So PL will be equal to B11 P1 square. If only 2 stations are there, 4 elements of B coefficients will be there, no? PL equation will be B11 P1 square plus B22 P2 square plus 2 B12 P1 P2. That was the equation. Of that, B122 or B21 and B22 are 0. So you'll get it as 15.625 is the loss. So loss is equal to B11 into 125 square. So you can find from that equation, you can find what is the value of B11, what is that loss coefficient. Now the coordination equation, you know, dF1 by dP1 plus lambda into dPL by dP1 is equal to lambda. In that equation, you substitute for this. Okay, so PL, the equation for PL was PL is equal to B11 P1 square. So that is 0.001 P1 square. From this, you can find what is dou PL by dou P1. So dPL by dP1 is 2 into 0.001. That is 0.002 P1. And substitute it in this equation. So that will be, what is dF1 by dP1? From this equation, you can get 0.025 P1 plus 15, no? 0.025 P1 plus 15 plus lambda into dou PL by dou P1 is 0.002 P1. That is equal to lambda. That was the equation. Coordination equation for plant 1. Rearrange it, solve it. So you'll get it as P1 as 123.28. Okay. So in this, this lambda was given us, the cost of received power is given us rupees 24. So here in this equation, instead of lambda in two places, you put it as 24. Okay. So solving that, you got P1 as 123.28. And from the coordination equation for plant 2, plant 2 coordination equation is 0.05 P2 plus 20. No, that is the dF2 by dP2 plus lambda into this term will not be there, no? Dou PL by dou P1. That is 0, no? Because it has nothing to do with, P2 has nothing to do with the loss. Transmission line loss is not at all affected by P2. So dou PL by dou P2 will be 0. So this equation will be dF2 by dP2 is equal to lambda. That's the second coordination equation. So the second coordination equation, 0.05 P2 plus 20 is equal to 24. Solving that, we'll get P2 as 80 megawatt. And transmission line loss, PL is equal to 0.001 into P1 square. P1 is 23.28 square. It's equal to 15.19. And the total load, PD, is equal to P1 plus P2 minus PL. So you'll get it as 188.1 megawatt. Okay. And this is the solution. P1 is 123.28, P2 is 80 megawatt, PL is 15.15, and the total demand is 188.1 megawatt. Okay, now we can do it with the help of penalty factor also. Penalty factor for, here we have done it for with the coordination equation. If you are applying the penalty factor equation, penalty factor for plant 1 is 1 by 1 minus dou PL by dou P1. So 1 by 1 minus dou PL by dou P1 was 0.002 P1. Okay, this is. So dF1 by dP1 multiplied by the penalty factor will be equal to lambda. So from this, rearranging that, again you'll get it as P1 as 123.28. And dou PL by dou P2 is 0, L2 is 1. Incremental cost of received power equals the incremental cost of production. So it will be 105 P2 plus 20 equal to 24, or solving P2 is equal to 80 megawatt. We got it as same as here, no? This one and this one. Same, similarly, this one and this one with the two different techniques, no? Now we will move on to the next topic of system constraints. What are system constraints? In the earlier discussion, we have mentioned that we have discussed about the system constraints, and we found that there are two types of system constraints. One is called the equality, second is called the inequality. And inequality can again be divided into hard type and soft type. What are they? Hard type are nothing but which are those which are definite, hard type, and specific. For example, tap changing of a non-load tap changing transformer. And what is soft type? Soft type are those which have some flexibility. There's some flexibility associated with them, like the node voltage, node angle, bus voltage or bus angle at a particular bus will have some range possible, say 1.0 to 1.05, like that. No, within that limits, it is possible. Voltage and frequency all have some limits possible. Okay. So similar the case with that. And now we go in detail to every constraints now. First one, equality constraints. I think in equality constraints, nothing more to discuss about that, because those are simply the load flow equation. Active power and reactive power, the load flow equations are stated here. Okay, so this we have discussed in the module 3, no? So that those are the equality constraints. Always power generation and power demand should meet with active power or else reactive power. That is the equality constraint. Okay. And next we'll be moving on to inequality constraints. In inequality constraint, first one is generator constraint. The KVA loading on a generator is given by root of P square plus Q square of that generator, and this should not exceed a pre-specified value Cp because of the temperature rise conditions. That is, Pp square plus Qp square should be less than or equal to Cp square. And this P active power of the Pth station, it is having again a limits P minimum and P max. Pp minimum and Pp max. The maximum active power generation, this P max, maximum active power generation of a source is limited again by the thermal consideration. And also a minimum power generation is limited by the flame instability of a boiler. Similarly, the maximum and the minimum of a reactive power generation of a source are also limited. Thus, maximum reactive power is limited because of the overheating of the rotor, and minimum is limited because of the speed QP minimum. No, it is limited by the because of the stability limit of the machine. So, first constraint was in the inequality. It is first one was generator constraint. Generator constraints means the KVA loading should be always less than or equal to Cp, which is being prescribed by the temperature rise consideration, and the active power and reactive power should be within a P minimum and P max, similarly a Q minimum and Q max. Next is the voltage constraints. It is essential that the voltage magnitude and phase angles at various nodes should vary within certain limits. So the voltage magnitude should vary within because certain limits, because otherwise most of the equipment connected to the system will not operate satisfactorily, or additional use of some regulatory mechanism should be incorporated, which will be an uneconomical process. So V always should be at a node P, Pth node, Vp should be magnitude of that should be less than less than a Vp max and greater than a Vp minimum. Similarly, delta P should be greater than delta P minimum and less than delta P max. The normal operating angle of transmission line lies between some 30 to 45 degree for transient stability reasons. Therefore, the higher limit is imposed on an angle delta. The lower limit of delta assures proper utilization of the transmission facility. Next is the running spare capacity constraints. Running spare capacity constraints are there in order to meet the forced outage of one or more alternators on the system, and two, the unexpected load on the system. These two conditions can be at some fraction. It can be met with the running spare capacity being stored. Okay, that is because to start a spare thermal unit, a standby unit, no, and to bring it on steam to take up that load will take several hours, say 2 to 8 hours it may take. Therefore, to meet the contingencies, the capacity of units online that is running must have a definite margin over the load requirements at all times, and this margin, which is known as the running spare capacity margin, or as the spinning reserve, which ensures the continuity by meeting the load demand up to certain extent, probable loss of generation capacity. So always the term running spare capacity you should remember, or it can also be stated as spinning reserve, in order to meet the unexpected outages in the system and unexpected load on the system. Okay. And the total generation should be such that in addition to meeting load demand and losses, a minimum spare capacity should be available, that is mentioned here. PSO, that is a spare capacity, where G is the total generation, PSO is the pre-specified power reserved as spinning reserve. Now we'll see some hard type, that is transformer tap setting. If an auto transformer is used, the minimum tap setting should be 0 and maximum is 1. That is, tap setting should be within 0 to 1. Similarly, for a 2-winding transformer, the tapping should be provided on secondary. If it is provided on secondary side, it should be within 0 to n, where n is the ratio of transformation. And phase shift, in the case of a phase shifting transformer, theta p should be within theta p minimum and theta p max. And next is the transmission line constraints. The flow of active and reactive power through the transmission line circuit is limited by the thermal capability of the circuit and is expressed as Cp less than or equal to Cp max. That Cp max is the maximal loading capacity of P2 line. So every transmission line has a capacity. So it should not be under thermal consideration. Should not exceed that value. What all may be the power being transmitted through that should not exceed the Cp max value. Next is the network security constraints. If initially a system is operating satisfactorily and there is an outage, maybe scheduled or a forced one, it is natural that some of the constraints of the system will be violated. The complexity of these constraints, that is in terms of number of constraints, is increased when a large system is understood. So in this case, a study is to be carried out with the outage of one branch at a time, and then more than one branches at a time. So that is to find out the security aspects. Okay, if outage of a single branch, how does it affect the other constraints, whether it violate the limits? That is known as the network security constraints. So with this, we can conclude the system constraints topic. So in today's session, we have covered the economic operation considering the transmission line losses. Then in that again, two methods, two equations format, some sort of format change, that's all. One is called the coordination equation, second is called the penalty factor method we had discussed. And then we moved on to the system constraints. What are the system constraints and all? We discussed that. The textbooks that you can refer to for this topic are given here in the reference slide. Thank you.